War is an algorithm. We will show its price. $2.3 trillion. That's what the United States spent trying to build a nation in Afghanistan over 20 years. August 15, 2021. The government collapsed in hours. The army vanished. The investments evaporated. This is the economics of the most expensive failed experiment in modern history. They said, "We'll build a democratic state." They got a system that dissolved the moment external funding stopped. The initial calculation. 2001. The invasion cost was calculated at $1 billion per month. Pentagon planners estimated 3 to 5 years of presence. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld spoke of a light footprint. The State Department budgeted reconstruction at $10 to $15 billion total. They got 240 months, $300 million per day, every single day, for 2 decades. According to Brown University's Costs of War project, direct military expenditures reached $837 billion by 2021. Add veteran care obligations extending to 2050, interest on borrowed war funds, and State Department operations, $2,313 trillion. This exceeds the entire GDP of Russia, more than the GDP of Canada, the annual budget of the entire U.S. federal government in 2001. The contractor multiplication effect. Here's where the algorithm accelerates. For every dollar appropriated, the actual cost multiplied through layers of contractors. USAID awarded a $150 million contract to build a power plant in Kabul. The primary contractor took 20% overhead. The subcontractor took another 18%. The local implementer took 15%. The security contractor protecting the site charged $400,000 monthly. By the time concrete was poured, $48 million had evaporated in administrative costs. The Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, SIGAR, documented this systematically. Of $7.8 billion allocated for counter-narcotics programs from 2002 to 2017, they could not account for results justifying more than $2.1 billion. The opium harvest in 2017, 9,000 tons. In 2001, 185 tons. They paid to multiply production by 48 times. Phantom infrastructure. They said, "We'll build schools and clinics." They got buildings that existed only on spreadsheets. SIGAR found that of 510 medical clinics reported as completed by 2015, only 226 existed. Of those, 104 lacked basic supplies. Another 87 had no staff. The Afghan government received $1.2 billion for healthcare infrastructure. Approximately $340 million went to structures never built or immediately abandoned. Roads tell the same story. The Kabul-Kandahar Highway, $191 million spent on repairs between 2007 and 2013. By 2014, 40% of the roadway was already degrading. Reconstruction became perpetual. Each repair contract generated new overhead. The road became a revenue stream, not transportation infrastructure. Schools? The Ministry of Education reported 16,000 schools operating in 2018. UN verification found 11,300. That's 4,700 schools receiving operational budgets, teacher salaries, and supply allocations, but enrolling 0 students. Ghost institutions consuming real money. The security spend spiral. Every dollar invested required dollars to protect it. This created exponential cost growth. Building a $50 million clinic required armed convoy transport for materials, $8 million annually, site security contractors, $12 million over construction period, post-completion guard forces, $3 million yearly, insurance and risk premiums, $4 million. Total security costs, $27 million to protect a $50 million facility. the security exceeded half the core investment. According to the Congressional Research Service, private security contractors in Afghanistan numbered 117,000 at peak in 2012. That exceeded U.S. troop presence. Costs, $6.1 billion in 2011 alone. Not for construction, not for services, for protection. This is the paradox. Every development dollar created a security obligation. More schools meant more targets. More roads meant more convoys to protect. More government buildings meant more guard forces. Growth generated cost faster than value. The army that cost $89 billion and lasted 11 days. They said, "We'll build a professional military of 350,000 soldiers." They got a payroll system with 350,000 names and perhaps 180,000 actual soldiers. From 2005 to 2021, the United States invested $88.61 billion building the Afghan National Defense and Security Forces. According to SIGAR, this bought weapons that disappeared into black markets, soldiers who existed only during pay period musters, commanders who pocketed salaries for phantom troops, units that reported full strength but fielded 30% personnel. The Afghan Air Force received 201 aircraft between 2010 and 2021. Training costs $8.5 billion. By August 2021, fewer than 80 aircraft remained operational. Most pilots defected or fled. The maintenance contractors, all American, evacuated. The fleet grounded within weeks. On August 15, 2021, this $89 billion institution collapsed in 11 days. Faster than it takes to process a standard procurement contract. The Kabul garrison, 50,000 troops on paper. They evaporated. Bagram Air Base, handed over in the night. The provincial capitals, surrendered without contact. Why? Because the Afghan National Army was never an army. It was a disbursement mechanism, a system for converting American appropriations into local patronage networks. When the funding stopped, the system stopped. The opportunity cost calculation. $2.3 trillion. What does that buy in alternative investments? According to World Bank calculations, universal pre-K education for every American child for 46 years. Or complete elimination of student loan debt 4 times over. Or transformation of U.S. electrical grid to renewable energy with $800 billion remaining. Or 11.5 million affordable housing units at $200,000 per unit. The war cost $300 million daily. The entire annual budget of the National Science Foundation, $8.8 billion. Afghanistan consumed that every 29 days. MIT estimated that $2.3 trillion invested in domestic infrastructure at 3% average return would have generated $69 billion in annual economic activity. Instead, it generated a government that lasted 11 days past the last funding transfer. The irreversibility trap. Here's the mechanism that made stopping more expensive than continuing. By 2009, Afghanistan consumed $100 billion annually. The military had built bases, supply chains, and logistics networks. Defense contractors had hired 40,000 employees. USAID had established offices in 32 provinces. The State Department had 1,200 personnel in-country. Withdrawal meant writing off sunk costs, terminating contracts with penalty fees, abandoning fixed infrastructure, and absorbing political costs of failure. Continuation meant another year of $100 billion. The rational choice should have been obvious, but institutions optimize for survival, not efficiency. Each year's budget became next year's baseline. Reduction required justification. Continuation was automatic. This is how wars become permanent. Not through military necessity, but through budgetary inertia. The spending justifies itself. The failure demands more investment. The algorithm runs. The final accounting. August 2021. The last C-17 departed Kabul. Behind it, $7.12 billion in military equipment abandoned or transferred, including 208 aircraft, 75,000 vehicles, and 600,000 weapons, according to Department of Defense estimates. Street value to Taliban forces, $2.1 billion. That's sophisticated reconnaissance drones, night vision systems, and encrypted communications. Now assets of the organization the war aimed to defeat. The costs of war project calculated total Afghan civilian deaths, 176,000. Economic displacement, 5.9 million refugees. Lost GDP from 2001-2021, estimated $900 billion in foregone economic development. But the costs extend past 2021. The U.S. will pay disability and health care for Afghan war veterans until 2070. Current projections, $2.2 trillion additional. That's nearly equal to what's already been spent. The war doubles its cost in peace. The system revealed. This was never about building a nation. It was about sustaining an expenditure system. Contractors needed projects. Agencies needed budgets. Military commands needed missions. The Afghan government needed patronage to distribute. Each actor was rational. Together, they created a machine that consumed $300 million daily and produced a state that collapsed in 11 days. Development creates. Reconstruction only returns. War consumes. Afghanistan proves the calculus. 20 years, $2.3 trillion, and a government that lasted less than 2 weeks past the final payment. Not defeat, not victory, evaporation, the most expensive disappearing act in history. War is an algorithm. We showed its price, $2.3 trillion for 11 days. Subscribe to What War Costs. We count what others won't. The real price of conflicts, not through slogans, but through numbers, systems, and consequences.